have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
With the idea of doing the March on Washington was to gather these forces from all corners of America to make a statement at the nation's capital that we had an armada of ideas and thoughts and feelings that would not be deterred.
It was a spirit that carried us forward, and there was a belief, it was an honest belief that march would make a difference. How little we knew that the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act would ultimately be supported by President Kennedy and signed into law. But to see people marching together and acting as though we were all raised together, the singing of Baptist hymns by people who never heard them before, and again, out of the confusion, the feeling that people had that this was something that was so important because for so long we said we were going to be a part of the march to Washington.
I had no idea of what I was doing. I was 22 years old, and I didn't understand the importance of it. But I understood that Bayard and Randolph had a vision, and I wanted to help make that vision become reality. In this co-op, by the way, the march actually started with people getting together in Bayard Rustin's apartment, sometimes late at night, to come up with this proposal for the march.
Everything was organized by Bayard Rustin, a brilliant, this is a black Quaker from Pennsylvania, born in Pennsylvania. He organized the entire nation. He was the heart and soul of organizing. There were packed lunches that people could take on the bus or buy on the bus, cartons of milk or juice. We had everything really sorted out. There were hundreds and hundreds of buses coming into Washington. He had it structured so the buses knew where they had to park, and people knew where the bus was, so when they went to the rally and then back to the bus, they knew where the bus was.
Most of us decided that one thing we could do was to go to the unions and ask them for buses and to start collecting money for buses. So at the final day, of course, in front of churches, political clubs, not-for-profits, we had these buses, some new, some broken down, some people were wondering whether it would make the trip to Washington. But it was a sense of bringing us together.
We drove down the night before and stayed in my mother's house, but because there was some concern about violence, it was decided that the young guys would stay home and watch on television and stay at her house, and my daughter Diane would go with me to the march.
J. Edgar Hoover and others serving in the government had warned the President of the United States that this was a dangerous moment in our history, and that that everything for them had indicated that such a gathering would be filled with violence. It sent a great fear through the Kennedy administration that in fact that's what would happen. And for this to happen on his watch at this time in our history was for them a great disaster. And he did everything he could, Kennedy, to convince us and to cajole us into not doing that march. But all of the leadership, black and white, held fast to the decision that they would do this. One of the ways in which I thought the Kennedy administration would be less concerned and less contentious on the idea of the march was to bring in the greatest of American images, And no one place resides with that harvest of power as does entertainment, as does culture. When you take a look at all the people that responded, Charlton Heston, Burt Lancaster, Paul Newman, it was incredible. All the actresses, Shelley Winters, all the people that showed up. And they didn't show up just to be on the platform. As a matter of fact, most of them were in the crowd, as they were required to be, requested to be. Don't just stand on the platform and play the celebrity club. Get out there and mingle with the truck drivers, with the maids, with the farmers, with everybody. Be part of the Americana. It added to the sense of positiveness, of joy. It became far more festive. In the end, Kennedy, who was deeply concerned about this and had really fell more on the side of what J. Edgar Hoover was saying, that this would be a deeply disturbing period filled with violence, all of that was washed away. The reality yielded something very different.
Lots of people were enthralled by the amount of celebrities on the platform. And I found myself looking backward at the crowd. And it was an amazing sight. It was black and white, as I said before, and it was trade unionists there and young people there. There were even some people in the trees. They climbed the trees to get a good to get a good place to see things, and it was an incredible sight.
And it was very peaceful. People were having picnics on the grass with their whole families. It was a serious and a very important time. And of course, the way King spoke was very touching when he said, "I may not get there with you, but I have a dream." I mean, that puts tears in my eyes now because, of course, he did not get there.
His speech turned out to be one of the great pieces of rhetoric of the 20th century, but nobody had any way of knowing that at the time. I was moved by the beauty of his words, by the literary, almost biblical quality of his language, as much as I was by its emotional content.
When we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
I saw the America that I really had in my fantasy. I saw the America that Dr. King was speaking about when he says, "I have a dream." And you saw America. You saw the young. You saw the old. You saw the lame. You saw the well-bodied. You saw professionals. You saw judges. You saw politicians. You saw the mosaic of what this country is really about in that space, living out its credo, living out its social ethic, living out what it was, what it wanted to be. I knew that if we could have this moment in that spot at this time, we could have it everywhere. And everywhere I went on that day, by the reflection pool, back of the Washington Monument, into the little enclaves of where people were sharing sandwiches and fruit and laughter with each other, I saw what I called America, the place I believe in, the place I wanted to fight for and defend and fix. We were doing that, and that's what to me was the true credo of the day.